Welcome to the C-Suite podcast with me, Russell Goldsmith, and Graham Barrett. We are here at Money20 Las Vegas.
We're recording the show in partnership with LSEG Risk Intelligence, who provide a range of solutions to help organizations effectively navigate risks and reduce fraud.
We really hope that you enjoy these conversations with some of the attendees and speakers from the event. So I'm now joined by Daniel Flowe, the Head of Digital Identity at LSEG Risk Intelligence. Daniel, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Should we start right there in terms of digital identity? Tell us about some of the biggest challenges currently facing the digital identity and fraud prevention landscape.
So they're myriad, which makes it a really interesting place to be, and really enjoyable. I would say that the biggest challenges that we see right now are the rise of generated content, the lack of confidence and trustworthiness in media that's provided for the purposes of verification. I think the sophistication of criminals, the sophistication of fraudsters and folks looking to evade sanctions it is really on the rise. And then finally, I think we're really coming to grips with the fact that many of the tools that we use to verify identities aren't inherently equitable and inclusive. That the models are built on limited data sets, limited use cases, and presume access to technology and means that not everyone in the world has. So we're really coming to grips with how to create identity verification that protects us, yet is still inclusive and equitable globally.
Yeah. Is it a worry that the fraudsters are kind of always one step ahead? I don't know. Is that the case in terms of using the technology?
I mean, I'll challenge the idea that they're one step ahead. Yeah. It's certainly a give and take, and I think it's constant vigilance, right? Because the rewards for someone successfully penetrating or successfully defrauding someone are higher than the risks. Yeah. So there's always someone out there willing to take a risk, try something new, embrace new technology. So I'll reject the idea that they're one step ahead, but I think constant vigilance. You're never finished.
Okay. Well, another area that's I guess concerning is AI, but also the deep fake technology, and how those two link, and again that is on the rise. How has the approach to identity verification evolved in that space?
So one of my favorite quotes, last year, the former chief data ethicist from Google said that we're entering into an era where content-based verification ceases to be reliable because you just can't trust generated content or provided content. So one of the things that we're seeing, there was a great article earlier this year in 404 Media where they were talking about how easily one of their reporters was able to obtain an AI-generated identity document and bypass screening on a prominent crypto firm. So we're really seeing where a lot of our methods of verifying identity have relied on provided media, so voice recordings, selfie images of documents, and we have to increasingly look at any media provided by someone skeptically and assume that it may be generated and not authentic content.
Yeah. Would you say those methods are fair and equitable?
I would say they're intended to be fair and equitable in general. I think that the reality has been that a lot of the means that we use to verify individuals is based on technology that used limited data sets for training. Okay. And unfortunately, a lot of the data sets used for training those algorithms were predominantly one demographic. And we've seen, and I can go on about this for hours, so you'll have to give me the signal, but the US GSA about 2 weeks ago released a study where it was a double-blind study. They took 5 large biometric verification vendors and tested them against different ethnicities, different skin tones, different genders, different ages. And the results were, in some cases, kind of shocking. That many of the facial recognition algorithms or facial verification algorithms were, in some cases, as much as 30 to 50% inaccurate on darker skin tones, on people of different ages. So I think everyone obviously went into this with the best intentions. But the reality is that without some changes, a lot of the commercially available tech on the market is not inclusive and is not equitable.
Can you go into any more detail in terms of how you're ensuring the AI-driven verification is free from that bias and discrimination?
So one of the reasons that we selected our partner for documented biometric verification, IDVerse, is they're a ground-up zero bias model.
Okay.
So where a lot of the commercially available products are built on top of existing tech, and a lot of that tech was trained with, like I said, a very limited demographic of image data to train. They ground up built their own algorithm with actually representative training data. Okay. So they're one of their big marketing messages is that they have a zero bias AI. There's a ton of independent governance and a ton of testing to ensure that what we bring to the market together is in fact fair and equitable.
Okay, so let's finish off then. What excites you about the future of AI and digital identity? And also, is there any kind of potential, or what are the biggest innovation opportunities do you think that you can see?
But I think there's myriad opportunities here. I'm really excited about the application as we start looking towards electronic IDs issued by governments and other authoritative sources, that we have a truly digital system of record for individuals that will protect us and that will ensure fairness and equity globally in identity verification.
That's great. Well, Daniel, Flowe, thank you so much for sharing all that information and joining the podcast today.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Pleased to say that I've now been joined by Mary Kay Bowman, who is EVP GM of Payments and Financial Services at Bill. How are you today?
I'm doing really well, thanks. I hope you're having a good time at Money20.
Yeah, we're having a great time. We really appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with us. And let's start with Money2020. It's been going for a few days now. What do you see as the key talking points this year?
Oh my goodness.
There are many, I know.
There are many. I'd have to get my cheat sheet out to do all of them. But I think innovation is always top of mind at Money2020. Sure. And this year, leading the pack in some ways is the AI story, and how the money business, so to speak, across the spectrum is taking advantage of the advances in the technologies for AI. I also think that the second side of the story for embedded payments and really making the payment utility better for the individual vertical software functions is a continuing story. It may be continuing for a long time.
Yeah, to be continued. Yeah, absolutely. And what about yourself as well? Because it'd be interesting to hear your own personal story, because you've only just joined Bill, haven't you? So
yes. What
are you excited about in this role?
Yeah, so I've spent a long time in fintech. I actually joined the fintech industry before it had a name of fintech. Yeah. So I've been through several cycles and worked through the growth of e-commerce, the growth of bringing mobile technology to the physical world, contactless, kind of you name it on the spectrum. What excites me and what has been kind of a thread throughout my career is bringing the advanced technologies and capabilities of advanced financial services and software together to small businesses.
Right.
It's one of those customer bases that everybody wants, but it's a little elusive because they're hard to connect to, but they probably need our help more than almost any other customer base.
Yep.
It's also really interesting that like 85% of customers in the small business sector say that they are interested in advanced technologies. They know it's part of their future. They just have such a hard time accessing it. And so that really motivates me.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting. Yeah. Now, you've alluded to technology there, AI, obviously that's a huge talking point here at the moment. I mean, how do you actually see this playing out? Because, if we're having this conversation maybe this time next year, are we going to see this space really accelerate?
Yeah, I think finding the right tool for the right job from a technology perspective is really important. And, the industry, we sit here with compliance officers and risk officers and, policy and technology officers that a lot of small and medium-sized businesses don't have access to. So I think it's really incumbent on the fintechs that work with the financial services infrastructure and those banks and service providers themselves to really think about, how do we make it simpler? How do we use this technology the right way? And how do we make it accessible? It sounds easier than it is. You know, you get some new whiz-bang capability and you think everybody wants it, everybody can use it, but you really have to make it fit to the context of the actual individual user. Though, especially those that don't have a CTO on their staff. Slightly
more challenging, yes. Absolutely. Now you mentioned the SMB sector there as well, which is crucial to your role by the sounds of it. Let's kind of flip the coin and talk about payment fraud. How do you see that affecting the SMB sector, and what can be done about it, I guess?
Yeah, so I think fraud and fraud management services and risk management generally in the payment and financial space is almost like an evergreen topic. Every time a new technology enables a new set of customers or a new part of the market, the fraudsters are almost following right behind, or in some cases leading in that. And so utilizing the right technologies, I think a lot in AI, better modeling, more intelligent systems in order to make small businesses less of a target for these. I think we saw individual customers and consumers and smaller businesses, those without a chief security officer, those without some of the advanced capabilities being the original targets. So we see that as part of our mission to help dissect all of the fraud that's coming in and finding the right tool to apply to abate it.
And just finish up by telling me what's on your to-do list maybe for the next few months. What are you excited about?
We're really excited about kind of breaking down some of these newer technologies into usable capabilities. There's a few things that never change for small businesses. They want to grow. They want to spend less of their time with the back office tools and functions and more time with their customers and their employees. And so we're looking for ways to bring those technologies and capabilities across software and payments together to make things better for our B2B customers and the small businesses, and then the large businesses also that they do business with, which is a really important function for us to close the loop.
Sounds challenging but exciting. So
yes, we're not going to sleep much.
No,
during
absolutely.
That time.
Listen, Mary Kay Bowman, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast here today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm now joined by Juliana Berger, the Director of Product Management at Intuit. Juliana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Should we start with a quick intro to the company?
Of course. So again, I am Juliana Berger. Thanks again for having me. I am the head of payments and invoicing at Intuit, where I manage roughly around $150 billion worth of transaction volume and around $2 trillion worth of invoicing volume for 5 million customers worldwide.
Wow.
I've been at the company for about 2 years, but I have almost 20 years of payments and financial services experience in companies like Meta, American Express, and Citibank.
Excellent. So clearly the person to ask this next question, because obviously here at Money2020, and I understand you've been to a few of these.
Yes.
So, but focusing on this year, what are the key trends and the talking points that you've spotted at the conference this year?
Indeed. I think, look, instant payments continues to be a top trend, especially now with FedNow. I'm also very excited, to be honest, about seeing so much AI and innovation around the AI space. I even see some AI robots and AI dogs in the area, which is the first time I've seen that since my Money2020 days. And so a lot around automation of workflows, a lot around how AI can drive and transform the fintech industry is what I'm most excited about today.
Great. Now, obviously at the company, a lot of support to small businesses.
Indeed.
What do you see the main challenges facing small businesses at the moment?
Great question. And it's universal, really, despite the industry and even the maturity of where the business lies. It's all about access to capital. Okay. And I'll tell you a little bit about why. So we hear that 58% of businesses are normally getting paid late. Right? And even within Intuit, which is an invoicing-based business, 64% of our customers have invoices that are past due, over 60 days past due. So as you can imagine, that puts an incredible amount of pressure on their cash flow and a cash flow crunch. And it leads to fear, it leads to stress for those business owners. And at the end of the day, they're in a situation of almost a zero-sum game of making decisions between, do I make payroll, or do I pay my supplier, or do I invest in growing the business? And so cash flow is still very much a big focus for small businesses today.
What would you say to those businesses that are paying late?
Yeah, it's interesting because everything is about how businesses manage cash flow, right?
Yeah.
And so it depends on who is the actual powerhouse in that equation. So as you know, payments is a two-sided equation, right? And so in a B2C relationship, a lot of the power lies with the business, right? And so you can put things like late payment fees in place, right? And you can do automatic reminders, for example, that can help consumers see that they're late and help them pay. You can even do things like offer loans or buy now, pay later, obviously, right? To help those consumers be able to bridge that gap. Now, if that transaction is a B2B transaction, right? Which is where we actually see the majority, by the way, of late payments happen is actually in a B2B relationship versus a B2C, then it depends on who's in the power seat, right? Is it the big B or is it the little b, right? If you're a small business, for example, but your supplier is a massive company, right? Or if you're, for example, I had a customer who's in the solar panel business and most of his customers are the government, right? Then they don't really have a lot of leverage in terms of being able to get paid sooner. And so that's where being able to provide those little Bs with services like instant funding or even line of credit, which is something that we offer at QuickBooks. We offer line of credit up to $50,000 for businesses, no additional documentation needed, that can help them bridge that gap. That's really where the value lies, so that they can manage between those times of when they're getting late paid and be able to make those decisions a little bit more effectively.
No, definitely. It's one of the biggest frustrations of running a small business because you want to be treated as a partner rather than just a supplier, if that makes sense. And if the bigger B is looking after that, their partner, then hopefully that will develop a much stronger relationship moving forward. So it always surprises me why especially 60 days plus
Isn't that wild?
Just crazy.
I'll give you another fun fact if you'd love, but one of the things that we're investing in the AI space, for example, is what we're calling customers like X, right? And it allows us, because we see that relationship end to end of the buyer and the seller, regardless of who the buyer is, we can then tell you as a merchant how that buyer behaves, not only with you, but with other businesses. So I can tell you, hey, this business generally pays late. Do you want to implement a late payment fee, right? Or do you want to implement reminders? Or do you want to offer them financing? So that kind of AI automation is what we're really excited about, to help you understand how the behavioral element of that relationship can shift and what you can do then to be able to optimize conversion.
That's a great use of AI. Well, sticking with that kind of technology theme, any other innovations that can support small businesses?
I'm very, very excited, as you know, about AI, and really excited about hearing around Money 2020 this time around AI. And I'll tell you another fun fact, one that blows my mind. 2/3 of the businesses that we have surveyed tell us that they spend an astounding average of 14 hours a week on manual administrative tasks related to collecting payments. 14 hours a week, right? Imagine a 5-day work week. That's 3 hours a day of you in front of your computer actually chasing down payments. So one of the biggest areas of investment for us at Intuit is how do we automate those workflows? And I'll give you a wonderful example. Imagine a world where you're sitting in front of your computer, you're typing in manually, creating those invoices and then sending them out one by one. What if you never had to do that again? Right? What if you're actually in the car heading to that to see that customer and you're just dictating it to your phone? Hey, I'm going to invoice Russell for $100 for whatever I'm just selling to him. Or what if I have an email between you and I that talks about the business and what the deal that we're making, and I just forward that email over to QuickBooks? Or what if I can just take a picture of the notes that I drew while I'm on site, forward that to QuickBooks, and all of that information is captured instantaneously. All of that information is automatically drafted into the invoice, so all you have to do is review and press send.
That is quite exciting. Final question for you. In terms of payment risk, how are you guys managing that?
I'll be honest with you. This is, again, I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, almost 20 years. This is the best risk team I've ever worked with. And I'll be honest as to why. If you think about the power of QuickBooks, we see every dollar in and every dollar out for every business we help serve. That data is fundamental, right? I remember when I used to work at Citibank, I was like, oh my gosh, we have so much data, big B, big D, big data, it's going to change the world. I went over to work at Meta and I was like, forget banking. Meta has all the data on all the users of the entire world. Like, this is where the big data game is. I'm a boy crying wolf, but I truly believe that Intuit has the data game here. Every dollar in and every dollar out for every business that we serve. So why is that powerful? Because we can take that data and we can create proprietary risk models that allow us to offer lines of credit, right, that allow us to extend access to capital in ways that nobody else can, because we have that in proprietary data we will never sell. And so that is what is exciting about what we can do, is that because of who we are as a business, we can drive truly differentiated value and be able to give you access to capital so that you can grow your business going forward.
Fascinating stuff. Juliana Berger, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm pleased to say I'm now joined by Arnoldo Reyes, who is GM and head of MoneyGram Business. Arnoldo, how are you today?
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
We'll come to your session because I know you spoke on Sunday. But first of all, just be keen to hear your thoughts on one of the big talking points here, which is the recent regulation, the Dodd-Frank 1033. What were your thoughts on that?
So, in general, the concept of open banking is a very, I think it's one that democratizes optionality. And what I mean by that is, if you think of traditional finance, most people, including myself, have had relationships with certain financial institutions for a very long time, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think what this new ruling, 1033 in particular, does is provide the ability to democratize that data, right? And obviously there's always arguments in these type of things for it's good or bad, or what are the benefits or the downfalls to that. In the end, I think fundamentally though, where all of these sort of like regulations drive, and what we should, as industry stakeholders, what we should really think about is, does this promote competition? Does this make it easier? Does it provide consumer choice? If I am potentially going to get better rates or better service somewhere else, the optionality to be able to make that switch, right? I think what it does for companies beyond sort of like the regulatory piece is it makes companies step up, right? It makes companies step up, focus on everything from user experience of the product to, are we offering competitive pricing? Are we making it easy for users to get the job done? So I think that ability to provide a little bit more freedom and optionality to consumers and make companies truly compete on what matters, right? There's consumers that will say, hey, I use this bank or this, payment provider because of pricing, and maybe the experience is not up to par. So no, I think it'll in a way help level the playing field, right? Okay. And it's always like, as long as there is security, data, security and all of that, I think it's a good step, right? And open banking can be very beneficial in many different ways.
Sure. Well, let's move on to your session. As I said, you spoke on Sunday, so it'd be great just to hear the kind of headline talking points that came out of that session, which was it was with MasterCard and Felix Pago, wasn't it, regarding innovation and expansion of remittances and disbursements in the LATAM region specifically. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. So when you think about Latin America, it's obviously, continues to be an emerging market. And it's one of the largest regions where you have a lot of immigration out of Latin America, right? So the industry has obviously always been supported or the region has been supported to a great extent by the money that people send back to the region, right? Which are cross-border remittances. And there's some economies in Latin America where 30-40% of their GDP is funded by remittances, which is pretty wild, right? And the discussion was really about how are we seeing the digitalization of remittances in Latin America. And from the MoneyGram point of view, over 50% of our transactions are now digital. We've signed deals, with a bunch of digital wallets like Mercado Pago and Spin in Mexico and a few others. So we're giving more digital optionality to our users, right? The second theme was companies like MoneyGram that have been around for a very long time, that have a strong brand equity in people's hearts and minds, is what else can we do across Latin America and other developing markets, right? And this is where we say, well, we have this amazing infrastructure with 440,000 physical retail agents around the world. We have 5 billion plus different endpoints we can send money to. We've primarily focused a lot on the B2C, right? So on helping individuals send money back home. But we can really repurpose our technology and our rails to move money for companies as well, right? And today we do that for a number of companies across payouts and across different verticals. So everything from consumer loan payments in the US, we help certain companies push those loan proceeds, for easy pickup, easy cash pickup. Through partners, we enable cruise line workers to send money back home through integration with our APIs. So there's a lot of work that we're doing that goes beyond the simple utility of allowing people to send money back home. And Latin America, as you know, is a region with some very interesting macro factors. A lot of people are still unbanked or underbanked, or as I say, unhappily banked, right? There's a huge investment in fintech overall, digitalization. The proliferation of wallets has made it incredibly easy to have a financial services market not necessarily driven by banks. And it's not that banks are bad, it's just you give more optionality to people, you democratize that access, right? So it was a great session, and MasterCard and Felix provided some very interesting insights from their vantage point.
Yeah, no, it sounds really fascinating, yeah. You just talked about it there in terms of how you're kind of reimagining your kind of network and what it can be used for.
Yeah.
So that's really where it's heading, is it? Towards away from, sort of adding to the consumer offering you have to the business offering too.
Correct. Yeah, and in my head, I think about it as like, grow core, add more, right? We continue growing our core business, and it's a business that we feel very privileged to have, because people say, oh, it's remittances, it's payments. And I always say remittances, the act of sending a remittance for an individual is one of the most emotionally charged types of financial services activities you can do. Because it's not only sending $100, right? It's sending $100 because you made in many cases the hard sacrifice of moving to another country, and that money you're sending back is to support, basic things like food and shelter and utilities and education.
Right. It's quite a symbolic payment. Actually,
it's a very symbolic payment. In fact, a good friend of mine, Dilip Ratha, who used to be at the World Bank, says remittances are dollars wrapped in love, right? So exactly. It's not like you're just paying your water bill, right? So when we think about that, we say, great, we're continuing to grow, we're continuing to innovate, to digitize that experience. But again, we have this amazing infrastructure, this payments network that is really cross-border, right? And how do we take that asset and how do we open it up to other companies, right? And a big step I think that we did a year ago, or a little over a year ago, is we built a complete new set of REST APIs. So we have an API platform that developers can come and build on top of our network. We have global digital partners today that use those APIs to facilitate money transfer, payouts, a whole slew of different payment flows and new types of transactions across different verticals, right? And really, that is the value of MoneyGram, right? Of course, we'll always focus on the remittance side, but we have so much more value to offer as a cross-border money movement network.
Excellent. Okay, and moving on to digital assets and blockchain. How is that kind of space evolving, and how is that impacting on the remittance space as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can be in payments or remittances without thinking of digital asset technology, right? Because it very much provides amazing utility in many different ways. And MoneyGram has certainly leaned into that innovation. And we do a couple things today. One is we have MoneyGram Access, which is the world's largest physical on and off ramp network. And we work with dozens of wallets that are integrated into the Stellar network. So we make it easy for people to load fiat onto those wallets and to off ramp into fiat using our 400,000+ physical agent locations. The other initiative we have is the MoneyGram wallet, which allows users to buy and sell and transfer USDC. And that's incredibly important in emerging economies where having a US dollar-like asset is important. That is live already in Brazil, in Mexico, and in the US. And the third sort of area where we've gone into is on the app, on the MoneyGram app itself. We have crypto brokerage, so that means users can come and buy different tokens like Bitcoin directly on the app, right? So it's certainly an area we're looking very much into. We've obviously leaned forward. We have a great partnership with Stellar And it's an area that everyone from our CEO down to all the different teams are very, very excited about, because it could really transform how the industry shapes out in the coming years.
Absolutely. Well, this is what is exciting about Money 2020, isn't it? Hearing about the future of payments,
absolutely.
essentially. So, Arnoldo, Reyes, thank you so much for joining me and taking me through that.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Really hope you've enjoyed these conversations from this year's Money 2020 at the Venetian here in Las Vegas.
Thanks once again to our partners, LSEG Risk Intelligence. If you've enjoyed the show, please do give us a positive rating and review. But for now, from me, Russell Goldsmith and Graham Barrett, goodbye.